Myra always had a restless heart. The city around her buzzed with life, cars honking, people rushing, shops spilling light onto the streets, but somehow it never felt enough. She wanted something different, something hidden, something that would awaken her imagination and make her feel alive. She carried her sketchbook everywhere, hoping that one day inspiration would find her in the most unexpected place. On a gray afternoon, with clouds hanging low like thick curtains, Myra wandered away from the crowded streets. She followed a narrow alley she had never noticed before, a quiet space between two old buildings where the noise of the city softened. Her curiosity pulled her forward until she noticed a small, faded door at the end of the alley. The paint peeled in thin curls, and the brass handle was dull, but something about it called to her. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and old wood. A narrow staircase wound upward, leading to shadows and silence. Myra's heart thumped with excitement. She climbed slowly, each creaking step echoing in the empty space. When she reached the top, she stepped into a large room that made her gasp. It was an opera loft, abandoned for years, yet it held an undeniable grandeur. Sunlight streamed through tall, grimy windows, falling on rows of empty seats below. The stage, though dusty, still carried traces of past performances, faded curtains, chipped wood, and the faint shimmer of gold leaf along the edges. Chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, some missing crystals, but enough remained to catch the light in tiny sparkles. Myra felt as though she had stepped into a forgotten world. Her eyes wandered over the space, taking in the details. On one side of the loft was a grand piano, polished despite the years of neglect. Its keys, though yellowed, seemed to whisper promises of music long silent. Myra ran her fingers lightly across the keys and listened to the soft, hollow sound echoing in the room. She smiled. This place was perfect. It was alive with stories, and she wanted to capture them all. Myra opened her sketchbook and began drawing. Lines and shadows danced across the page as she tried to catch the essence of the loft. She was so absorbed that she did not notice another presence until a voice spoke softly from the far corner. "You found it too?" Myra froze, her pencil hovering over the paper. She turned and saw a young man leaning against a pillar, half in shadow. His hair was dark and slightly tousled, and his eyes held a quiet curiosity. He wore simple clothes, yet there was something about him that felt familiar. I didn't hear you come in," Myra said, her voice cautious but not unfriendly. He stepped closer, his gaze moving around the room with appreciation. "I come here sometimes," he said. "It's peaceful. It's like the world stops up here." Myra nodded. "I was looking for inspiration," she said. "I didn't think I would find anyone else here." He smiled faintly. "I'm Leo. I love old places. They tell stories if you listen carefully." Myra felt a spark of connection. "Myra," she replied. "Stories, yes. That's exactly why I came here." For a few moments, they stood quietly, letting the loft fill the space between them. Dust motes floated in the sunbeams like tiny dancers. The air felt electric, but not in a frightening way, more like the quiet hum of possibility. Both were aware that they had discovered something special, a secret place where the world outside could not intrude. "I never thought anyone else would care about this place," Myra said softly. "Most people pass by and never notice," Leo replied. "But some of us, we see what others overlook. That's where beauty hides." Myra smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't known in a long time. She glanced at her sketchbook, then back at Leo. "Maybe, We could meet here again? Share what we find. Leo nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. I'd like that. As the afternoon faded into early evening, the two of them explored the loft together. Myra sketched, and Leo moved lightly around the piano, pressing keys and letting soft notes drift through the air. The loft seemed to awaken around them, as though it had been waiting for someone to notice its secrets. By the time Myra left, the city below had grown quiet, but her heart was full. She walked home with a light step, her mind buzzing with ideas and the memory of Leo's quiet presence. For the first time in a long time, she felt that life might hold more than routine and noise. It could hold wonder, connection, and even the beginnings of something unexpected. And she knew she would return. After that first afternoon, Myra could not stop thinking about the loft. Its dusty corners, faded murals, and golden sunlight had captured her imagination, but it was the memory of Leo that lingered the most. His quiet presence, the way he moved around the room as if it belonged to him, and the gentle way he spoke about the loft made her heart feel lighter. She wondered if he thought about her too. The next day, Myra returned. She climbed the narrow staircase, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, hoping the loft would welcome her again. When she pushed the door open, sunlight was streaming differently, painting long patterns across the wooden floor. And there he was, Leo, sitting at the piano, his fingers moving softly over the keys. The sound was gentle and calm, filling the empty loft with a quiet energy that made Myra pause. "Hello," she called softly. Leo looked up and smiled. "I knew you'd come back," he said. "I'm glad." Myra returned the smile. "I couldn't stay away," she admitted, and set her sketchbook down on a nearby table. They spent hours together that afternoon. Myra sketched while Leo played, each creating something in the presence of the other. They did not speak much at first, letting the loft silence and the music guide them. But gradually, words began to flow, small conversations that made them laugh, questions about life and dreams, stories about places they had been. Myra discovered that Leo loved music more than anything. He had traveled to many cities, performing in small halls and theaters, yet he had left that life behind. "I got tired of people who cared more about fame than the music itself," he said quietly. "I just wanted to play, for someone who would understand it." Myra nodded, feeling a deep respect for him. "I know what that's like," she said. "I just want to create art that means something, not just what people expect." They smiled at each other, understanding without words the passion that drove them. For Myra, the loft was no longer just a place of inspiration, it had become a place of connection. She realized how much she enjoyed Leo's presence, how his calm energy made her feel safe and understood. Leo, in turn, noticed Myra's creativity and determination. He admired the way she observed the loft, noticing details he had never seen before: the patterns of cracked paint on the walls, the way the sunlight touched a dusty curtain, the tiny carvings on the stage's wooden floor. She brought the loft to life through her sketches, and it made him feel alive again too. As the afternoon passed, they shared small gestures that deepened their bond. Leo offered Myra a sip of water from his bottle, and she handed him her pencil when he wanted to make notes on a sketch. They laughed at little accidents: Myra's smudged drawings, Leo's misplaced notes, and the loft seemed to echo with their joy. Every moment felt deliberate yet effortless, as if the universe had conspired to bring them together in this hidden space. When the sun began to set, the light turned golden, streaming through the windows and casting long shadows. Myra put down her sketchbook and looked at Leo. "Thank you for sharing this place with me," she said softly. Leo smiled warmly. "Thank you for seeing it the way it should be seen," he replied. "Most people only see dust and decay. You see life." Myra felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that the loft had given her something more than sketches. It had given her a sense of belonging, and perhaps, the beginning of love. Leo's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, words were not necessary. They shared a quiet understanding, the kind that only forms when two people feel a connection deeper than explanation. As Myra left the loft that evening, she felt lighter than she had in months. The city outside was still loud and chaotic, but her mind and heart were calm. She had discovered not just an abandoned opera loft, but also the possibility of something beautiful growing in her life. And she knew that the next time she returned, it would not just be for inspiration but for Leo as well. The following weekend, Myra climbed the narrow staircase to the loft with a sense of excitement she had not felt in years. She had been thinking about the loft and Leo every day, imagining the way sunlight would fall across the stage, the shadows moving slowly with the fading afternoon light. Today, she had brought her sketchbook, some pencils, and a notebook filled with ideas she wanted to share. But as she pushed open the door, she stopped in her tracks. Leo was sitting at the grand piano, his fingers hovering above the keys. The soft sunlight caught his hair, giving it a golden halo, and Myra felt a sudden warmth in her chest. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "You're early," he said, his voice calm and inviting. "I couldn't wait," Myra admitted, stepping inside and setting her things down. Leo's smile widened slightly, and he began to play. The first notes were soft, almost hesitant, like he was feeling his way into the music. Myra watched, fascinated, as his fingers moved effortlessly across the keys, creating a melody that filled the loft with life. The sound seemed to rise from the piano itself, flowing through the empty seats and climbing to the high ceiling, echoing in the forgotten corners of the room. Myra opened her sketchbook and began to draw. She tried to capture not only the loft but also the feeling the music created, the quiet thrill of rediscovery, the gentle excitement of seeing beauty after so many years. As she sketched, she noticed how Leo's expression changed with the music. His eyes closed at times, a slight smile on his lips, and his fingers danced with confidence and emotion. The loft seemed to respond to the melody. Dust motes floated like tiny dancers in the sunlight, and the faded murals on the walls seemed to glow softly. Myra felt as if the space itself had awakened, grateful for the music and the attention. She had never felt anything like it, the combination of music, art, and the presence of someone who understood the beauty of the moment. When the piece ended, Leo looked at Myra and laughed softly. "You should see your face right now," he said. "It's completely alive." Myra blushed, shaking her head. "I'm just trying to capture it," she said. It's beautiful, what you're playing. I've never heard anything like it." Leo nodded, then gestured to the piano. "Do you want to try?" Myra hesitated. She had never played a piano properly, only dabbled when she was very young. But something about the loft, the moment, and Leo's gentle encouragement made her nod. She sat on the bench, her fingers hovering above the keys. Leo guided her hand at first, showing her which notes to play. Then, slowly, she began to create a simple melody on her own. Leo watched quietly, letting her find the rhythm. When she stumbled, he offered a soft laugh and whispered, "It's okay. Keep going. Just feel it." Myra smiled, gaining confidence. Soon, the two of them were creating a melody together. Leo's hands moved with skill and grace, while Myra's simple notes added a fresh, unpolished energy. The loft seemed to breathe with them, alive with music and art and the quiet connection that had grown between them. After a while, they stopped, both breathing slightly heavier than before. Myra looked at Leo, and for a moment, neither spoke. The loft was quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. It felt full with music, laughter, and something neither of them wanted to name yet. "You play like the loft remembers how to sing," Myra said softly, her voice almost a whisper. Leo smiled, his gaze steady on hers. "And you see it as it wants to be seen. That's rare." Myra felt a warmth spread through her. She realized that the loft had given her more than inspiration, it had given her the chance to share something meaningful with someone who understood her heart. And the thought of spending more afternoons like this, creating, laughing, and sharing quiet glances, made her pulse quicken. When Myra finally left the loft that evening, the city lights glimmered below, but her mind was still in the quiet, sunlit space with Leo. The piano, the sketches, and the music had created a memory that would stay with her. She knew that the connection between them was growing stronger, and that the abandoned opera loft was no longer just a hidden place, it was a world they were building together, note by note, line by line, heartbeat by heartbeat. Over the next few weeks, Myra and Leo met in the abandoned opera loft almost every day. Each visit brought new discoveries, new angles of sunlight, new corners of the stage, new stories whispered by the walls. Their connection deepened with each meeting, their laughter filling the empty space and making it feel alive once again. Yet, despite their growing closeness, a quiet tension lingered, unspoken but present in every glance and smile. One afternoon, Myra arrived to find Leo already at the piano, playing a melody that sounded both joyful and tinged with sadness. She listened for a while before speaking. "That's beautiful," she said softly, closing her sketchbook. Leo looked at her, his eyes carrying a hint of melancholy. "It's complicated," he said. "I haven't played like this in years. There are memories in the music, things I left behind." Myra sat on the edge of the stage, curious. "What kind of things?" she asked gently. Leo hesitated, fingers resting on the keys. "I used to perform in big concert halls," he began. "I traveled to many cities, played for thousands of people. But it wasn't real. Everyone cared about the applause or the fame, not the music itself. It wore me down. I stopped because I wanted to find meaning again, something true. That's why I come here. The loft, it's honest. It doesn't judge. It just exists, like it's waiting for someone who understands." Myra listened, feeling a deep empathy for him. She had experienced something similar with her art, painting what she truly felt, only to have others dismiss it or demand it fit their expectations. "I understand," she said softly. "It's hard to stay true to yourself when the world wants something else." Leo nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "You do understand. That's rare. Most people wouldn't care about an abandoned loft or an old melody. But you see more than I expected." Myra felt her heart warm. She realized that their connection went beyond shared interests, it was built on understanding and respect, on the quiet recognition of each other's dreams and struggles. The loft, once a forgotten space, had become a sanctuary where they could be themselves. Over the next hour, they spoke more about their pasts. Myra told Leo about her struggles as an artist, about the doubt that sometimes crept into her mind, making her question whether her work mattered. Leo shared more about his travels, the lonely hotels, and the moments of beauty that had reminded him why he loved music. With each story, they felt closer, the barriers between them slowly dissolving. At one point, Myra glanced at Leo, noticing the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. She felt a flutter in her chest, a new awareness of how much she cared for him. Leo, in turn, noticed the light in her eyes when she spoke about her art, the excitement that shone even when she was tired or frustrated. Both felt the pull of something more, something neither had fully named yet, but both could feel growing stronger with every shared secret. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the loft, Leo stopped playing and turned to Myra. "I'm glad you came here," he said quietly. "I didn't expect to find someone who understands this place the way I do." Myra smiled, feeling a warmth she could not describe. "I'm glad I found it too," she replied. "And I'm glad I found you." They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, listening to the faint echoes of the loft, feeling the calm that had settled over them. It was a rare kind of peace, the kind that comes from being completely understood by another person. As Myra packed up her sketchbook and pencils to leave, Leo walked her to the door. "See you tomorrow?" he asked, his voice soft but hopeful. "Of course," Myra said, smiling. "I wouldn't miss it." Outside, the city seemed louder than usual, but Myra walked home with a light step. Her thoughts were full of the loft, of music and sketches, and of the quiet moments she had shared with Leo. She realized that their bond was no longer just about art or music, it was about trust, understanding, and the beginnings of something deeper. For the first time in a long while, Myra felt certain of one thing: the abandoned opera loft had brought more than inspiration into her life. It had brought connection, friendship, and the promise of something beautiful growing between two hearts. And she knew that when she returned tomorrow, the loft and Leo would be waiting, ready to create another memory together. The rain had started softly, tapping against the tall windows of the abandoned opera loft as Myra climbed the narrow staircase. The world outside was gray and wet, but inside the loft, the air felt warm and inviting. The familiar smell of old wood and dust mixed with sunlight streaming through the rain-smeared windows made Myra feel calm. She carried her sketchbook under her arm, but her thoughts were on something else entirely, on Leo. When she entered the loft, she saw him standing near the piano, looking out at the city blurred by rain. His dark hair clung slightly to his forehead, and the soft light made his expression gentle yet thoughtful. He turned and smiled when he noticed her, and Myra felt a flutter in her chest she could no longer ignore. "Hi," she said softly, stepping further inside. "Hi," he replied, his voice carrying a warmth that made her feel at home. "I was hoping you'd come." Myra set her sketchbook down and walked closer, her heart beating faster. "I wanted to be here," she said. I like being here with you." Leo's eyes softened, and for a moment, neither spoke. The loft seemed quiet, waiting with them, holding its breath as if it knew something important was about to happen. Myra looked at him, studying the way his eyes held hers, the gentle curve of his smile, and she felt a sudden courage she had not known she possessed. "Leo," she began, her voice trembling slightly, I have to tell you something." He tilted his head, encouraging her without words. "What is it?" Myra took a deep breath. I like you," she said simply, but her heart raced. "More than just as a friend. I like you a lot. Being here with you, it feels right. Like this place, like us, belongs together." For a moment, Leo didn't move. Then he stepped closer, the soft click of his shoes echoing in the loft. He reached out and took her hand gently. "Myra," he said, his voice low and steady, I've been waiting to hear that. Because I feel the same way. I have for a while, but I wasn't sure if you felt it too. Myra felt a rush of relief and joy. The loft, which had once been silent and abandoned, seemed to hum around them, alive with the energy of their shared emotion. She squeezed his hand, her smile brightening. "I'm glad," she whispered. Leo smiled back, his eyes shining. "Me too," he said. "Being here with you, it makes everything else fade away. The city, the noise, it doesn't matter when I'm with you." For a long moment, they simply stood there, holding hands, letting the warmth of the loft and the quiet rhythm of the rain surround them. Myra felt a happiness she had never known, a deep, steady joy that came from being truly seen and understood. Leo felt it too, a certainty that this connection was real, meaningful, and worth cherishing. Finally, Leo let go of her hand just long enough to step behind the piano. He began to play, a soft melody that seemed to mirror the feelings building between them. Myra listened, her heart swelling, watching as his fingers moved with grace and emotion. The notes floated through the loft, mingling with the sound of rain against the windows, creating a perfect harmony of music, emotion, and intimacy. When the last note faded, Leo turned back to Myra, his eyes locked on hers. Without another word, they moved closer together. The loft, the rain, and the music around them seemed to pause, holding them in a perfect, quiet moment. Myra felt the warmth of his hand on her cheek, the gentle tilt of his head as he leaned in. Their first kiss was soft, tentative, yet full of the unspoken feelings that had been growing between them for weeks. When they pulled back slightly, both were smiling, breathless, and aware of the deep bond that had finally been acknowledged. "I'm glad we didn't wait any longer," Myra said softly. "Me too," Leo replied. "I think this is just the beginning." Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside the loft, a new kind of music played, a melody of hearts finally in sync, of feelings shared, and of a love that had found its place in a world that had once seemed gray and empty. As Myra left the loft that evening, her heart felt light, her steps confident. She knew that their connection would grow stronger, that the abandoned opera loft would continue to witness their shared moments, and that together, they had discovered something truly beautiful, not just inspiration, not just friendship, but the beginning of love. The weeks passed, and the loft became Myra and Leo's sanctuary. They met almost every day, drawing, playing music, and sharing stories. Their bond had grown deeper since that rainy afternoon, and they had discovered the joy of creating together. Yet, the outside world began to make its presence known, reminding them that life existed beyond the quiet walls of the abandoned opera loft. One morning, Myra received an unexpected message. A prestigious gallery in the city wanted to feature her sketches and paintings in a new exhibition. Her heart leaped at the opportunity. It was a dream come true, but it also made her feel uneasy. The gallery required weeks of preparation, long hours, and time away from the loft. Later that afternoon, she shared the news with Leo while they were sitting on the stage, sketchbooks open and pencils in hand. "Leo, I got an invitation from the gallery," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and worry. Leo paused, looking at her with a gentle smile, though his eyes carried a hint of concern. "That's amazing, Myra," he said. "I'm so proud of you. I'm happy, but I don't want to stop coming here. I don't want us to drift apart," she admitted. Leo reached over and took her hand. "We won't drift apart," he said softly. "You should follow your dreams. That's what this loft has always been about, finding what matters to you. And I want you to succeed." But I don't want to lose what we have. Myra smiled, feeling relief. Thank you, she whispered. Just as they were beginning to relax, Leo received news of his own. A renowned concert hall in another city had invited him to perform a solo recital. It was a prestigious opportunity, one that could revive his career in music. He had longed for this chance for years, but now it came at a time when he had grown close to Myra. I got an invitation too, he confessed, looking down at his hands. It's a big opportunity, but it means leaving the city for weeks. Myra's heart sank slightly, but she tried to hide it. That's wonderful, Leo, she said, forcing a smile. You should go. You've waited a long time for this. He looked at her, eyes filled with conflict. I don't want to leave you, he admitted. But I don't want to miss this chance either. I don't know what to do. They sat in silence for a moment, the loft quiet around them, listening to the faint hum of the city outside. Both realized that their growing love was being tested. They had found something beautiful together, yet life was pulling them in different directions. Finally, Myra reached out and took his hand. Leo, I think we can make this work, she said gently. We don't have to stop creating together. We can support each other's dreams. The loft will still be here for us. And when we're apart, we'll find ways to stay connected. It doesn't have to change what we feel. Leo looked at her, hope flickering in his eyes. You really think so? He asked. I do, Myra said firmly. We've built something special. It's strong enough to survive a little distance. We just have to trust it and each other. Leo smiled, relief washing over him. You're right, he said, squeezing her hand. I don't want to let fear control this. I want us to grow together, even if it means facing challenges. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning how they would manage their upcoming opportunities. Myra would prepare her artwork and send sketches to Leo, while he would practice and send recordings of his music. They would meet in the loft whenever they could, and share their progress with each other. It wouldn't be easy, but they both felt confident that their connection was strong enough to survive temporary separation. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the loft, Myra and Leo stood near the windows, watching the city below. The future felt uncertain, but they were determined to face it together. The abandoned opera loft, once a quiet refuge, had become a symbol of their love and creativity, a place where their hearts had met, and where they would return again and again, no matter where life took them. Hand in hand, they left the loft that evening, hearts full of hope, ready to face the challenges ahead, knowing that true connection could endure distance, dreams, and time. Months had passed since Myra and Leo first confessed their feelings in the abandoned opera loft. The city outside continued its hurried rhythm, but inside the loft, time seemed to move differently. It had become more than a place of inspiration, it had become their sanctuary, a space where dreams and hearts met. Despite the challenges of their separate careers, they had stayed connected, sharing sketches, melodies, and letters that kept their bond strong. One crisp morning, Myra arrived at the loft carrying a small box of supplies. The sunlight poured through the tall windows, catching dust motes and turning them into floating golden sparks. Leo was already there, sitting at the piano, his fingers poised above the keys. He looked up when she entered and smiled, a warmth in his eyes that made Myra's heart flutter. You're early today, he said, his voice soft but playful. I couldn't wait, Myra replied, returning his smile. I have something to show you. She placed the box on the stage and opened it, revealing paints, brushes, and rolls of canvas. I thought we could finally start turning this loft into something more permanent. A place for our art and music, where we can share it with others, but still keep the magic just for ourselves. Leo's eyes lit up. I love that idea, he said. It's perfect. The loft has given us so much, it deserves to come alive again. They spent the day working together. Myra painted murals along the walls, bringing color and life to the faded images that had long been forgotten. Leo polished the piano, tuning it carefully, and set up a small stage for performances. Each brush stroke and each note of music felt like a celebration of their time together, a testament to their shared dreams. The loft, once abandoned and silent, seemed to hum with energy, alive with their creativity and love. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting warm light across the room, Myra stepped back to admire the changes. She felt a surge of pride and happiness. "It's beautiful," she whispered, looking at Leo. "We made this place ours." Leo smiled, his gaze lingering on her before turning back to the room. "We did," he said. "And we'll keep making it better. Together." That evening, the first visitors arrived. Friends from Myra's gallery, fellow artists, and music lovers came to see the loft transformed into a small gallery and recital space. Myra and Leo shared their creations, watching as people marveled at the murals, sketches, and melodies. It was a joyous, lively night, filled with laughter and applause, yet the loft never lost the intimacy that had brought them together in the first place. After the visitors left, Myra and Leo stayed behind, walking hand in hand through the quiet space. The city outside glowed with lights, but the loft felt like a world of its own, a safe place where their hearts and dreams could grow freely. Leo stopped near the piano, looking at Myra with a soft expression. "You know," he said, "this loft has changed everything. Not just for our art, but for us. I feel complete here. With you." Myra's heart swelled. "I feel the same," she said, squeezing his hand. "We built something that's ours, and it's only the beginning." He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "I think we've found our home," he said quietly. "Not just this loft, but each other." They stood together in the golden light, listening to the faint echoes of their laughter, their music, and their love. The abandoned opera loft, once forgotten, had become a place of life, creativity, and romance, a testament to the power of connection and the magic of shared dreams. As Myra looked around the loft, she realized that their journey had been more than just inspiration. It had been about trust, understanding, and the courage to follow their hearts. The challenges of the outside world could not dim what they had discovered together. They had created something lasting, not just a transformed loft, but a love that would continue to grow, nurtured by creativity, respect, and shared passion. Hand in hand, Myra and Leo walked to the balcony, looking out at the city below. The lights sparkled like tiny stars, reflecting the hope and possibility that lay ahead. They knew that life would bring new challenges, new dreams, and new adventures, but for now, they were content. The abandoned opera loft had given them more than inspiration, it had given them a home, a stage for their hearts, and a future filled with creativity, love, and the quiet joy of being together. And as the night settled over the city, Myra and Leo embraced, knowing that their journey was just beginning, and that whatever came next, they would face it side by side.